you're still here?" The voice came from the dark end of the office, and I almost knocked my coffee straight into my keyboard. I had been so sure I was alone that my whole body reacted before my brain did. My shoulders jumped. My chest tightened. For half a second, I just stared over the top of my laptop like an idiot, listening to the low hum of the air conditioning and the soft click of someone else's keys across the room. Then the desk lamp near the operations pod flicked on, and I saw him. Miles Carter, the quiet new guy. He was sitting 3 rows away with his sleeves rolled to his elbows, one hand resting on his mouse, the other rubbing tiredly at the side of his neck. He looked just as surprised to see me, which made no sense, because he was the one who had spoken first. "Sorry," he added softer. "Didn't mean to scare you." I let out a laugh that sounded way too thin. "You didn't." A complete lie. My pulse was still trying to escape through my throat. Miles looked at the coffee trembling slightly in my hand, then back at me. He didn't call me out. That was somehow worse. It was almost 9:40 on a Thursday night, and the office didn't feel like the same place anymore. During the day, it was all ringing phones, calendar alerts, people pretending they weren't stressed, Jenna from account management laughing too loud near the printer. But after everyone left, the place went weirdly still. Too still. The kind of quiet that made every small noise feel personal. I was only there because Martin had dropped a client pitch on my desk at 4:57 and said, "Just polish it up before tomorrow morning. Just polish it up." Like the deck didn't have 36 slides, missing numbers, and a chart that looked like it had been made by someone losing a fight with PowerPoint. I should have been annoyed. I was annoyed. But seeing Miles there made the night shift feel less pathetic somehow. Which was stupid. He was just a coworker. A new coworker, technically. He had started 3 weeks earlier in data operations and had somehow become the office mystery without trying. People noticed him because he didn't seem interested in being noticed. He came in on time, did his work, answered questions politely, and disappeared before happy hour invites got serious. No oversharing. No fake office energy. Just quiet nods, clean button-downs, and this calm way of looking at people like he was actually listening. I didn't know what to do with guys like that. Guys who didn't fill silence just to prove they could. Deadline? He nodded toward my screen. Client deck. I leaned back and rubbed my eyes. Apparently, tomorrow morning's meeting became tomorrow morning's emergency. His mouth twitched, barely. Not quite a smile, but close enough that I noticed. Marketing does love a crisis. Operations loves pretending it doesn't cause them. That got the real smile. Small. Quick. Gone almost immediately. But it hit me anyway, right in the stupid part of my chest I tried not to listen to. I looked back at my laptop before he could see anything on my face. Not that there was anything to see. It was late. I was tired. Attractive people become more attractive under bad fluorescent lighting when your blood sugar is low. That was science. Probably. Miles stood and walked toward the printer, which had started making that angry grinding sound like it was digesting paper clips. He moved quietly, like even his shoes didn't want attention. "You always stay this late." I shrugged. "Only when I make poor career choices." He glanced over his shoulder. "So often." I blinked, then laughed for real. "Wow. Quiet guy has jokes. 1 or 2. He pulled the jammed paper out, careful and patient, then closed the tray with his hip. "I saved them. For late-night office trauma?" "Exactly." The printer started working again. He stayed beside it for a second, waiting, arms crossed loosely. And I hated how aware I was of the distance between us. Not close. Not really. But close enough that I could see the faint shadow under his eyes. Close enough to notice he looked tired in a way that felt private. "You drink iced coffee at night?" His gaze dropped to the plastic cup beside my laptop. "That's insane. It's called survival. It's called a medical concern." I opened my mouth to argue, but stopped. "Wait. How do you know I drink iced coffee?" Miles paused. Just 1 second too long. Then he reached for the printed pages and tapped them into a neat stack. "You leave one on the conference table almost every morning." My stomach did this small, unnecessary drop. "You noticed that?" "Hard not to." He handed me the pages. Our fingers brushed. Barely. Nothing dramatic. Just skin against skin for less than a second. Still, my brain went quiet like someone had unplugged it. Miles didn't move right away. Neither did I. Then I took the papers too fast and looked down like the slide order was suddenly the most fascinating thing in the world. It meant nothing. He was observant. That was literally his job. Data guy? Pattern guy? Coffee cup guy, apparently. Thanks, I muttered. For the printer. No problem. He started back toward his desk, then stopped halfway. Ethan, hearing my name from him, felt weird. Not bad. Just too clear in the empty office. I looked up. Miles stood under the dim overhead lights, one hand in his pocket. Expression unreadable. You should probably eat something if you're staying much longer. I stared at him. Are you always this concerned about people's blood sugar? Another tiny smile. Only when they look like they're about to fight a spreadsheet and lose. I should have had a comeback. I usually did. Instead, I just sat there with my heart doing something embarrassing while Miles walked back to his desk like he hadn't just made the office feel smaller. Warmer. More dangerous. I told myself it was nothing. Just a long night. Just a coworker being nice. Just the quiet new guy noticing things. Then, 10 minutes later, a bag of pretzels landed gently beside my laptop. I looked up. Miles was already walking away. You looked like you needed it, he called back without turning around. And that was the first time I wondered if maybe quiet didn't mean distant. Maybe it meant he had been paying attention the whole time. By the time I opened the pretzels, Miles had already gone back to pretending he had not done anything strange. That was what made it worse. If he had smiled at me like he knew exactly how thoughtful it was, I could have rolled my eyes and moved on. If he had made some big joke out of it, I could have laughed and filed it under harmless coworker behavior. But he just sat down at his desk, adjusted his monitor, and went back to work like leaving snacks beside my laptop at nearly 10 at night was a normal thing people did. I stared at the bag for longer than I should have. Then I opened it, because apparently I had no pride, and also because he was right. I was starving. The first crunch sounded way too loud in the empty office. Miles glanced up. Better. I looked over at him. I hate that you were right. His mouth curved a little. I will try to survive. Do not get used to it. Too late. Something about the way he said that made my hand pause halfway to the bag. Too late. 2 words. Nothing serious. Nothing worth reacting to. Still, my chest tightened like my body had decided to be dramatic without my permission. I turned back to the deck and forced myself to focus. Slide 12 needed a cleaner graph. Slide 17 made no sense. Slide 22 had a typo so ugly I actually whispered, "Come on, man," under my breath. What happened? Miles looked up again. Nothing. Just personally offended by bad formatting. He stood and came over before I could tell him not to. Show me. You do not have to help. I know. He pulled a chair from the next table and sat beside me anyway. Not across from me. Beside me. Close enough that the sleeve of his shirt brushed the arm of my chair when he leaned in. My stomach did that annoying drop again. The kind that made me want to sit up straighter and act like I had never once had an inappropriate thought about a coworker with tired eyes and quiet hands. He studied the screen, then reached past me to point at the chart. This number is from the old report. How do you know that? Because your team keeps using the wrong export. I blinked. That was painfully specific. I told Jenna last week. Jenna forgets anything that is not written in 3 calendar invites. Miles gave me a look. I noticed. I laughed, and he smiled again, but this time he did not look away right after. He just stayed there, eyes on me, like my laugh had caught him off guard. The silence stretched. Not long enough to be obvious, just long enough for me to become aware of it. I cleared my throat and pointed at the laptop. So, wrong export. Right. He looked back at the screen too quickly. Send me the file. I can pull the updated numbers. Miles, seriously, you have your own work. My report is running. That sounds fake. It is not. It sounds like something a quiet data guy says when he is secretly avoiding small talk. That got a low laugh out of him. Softer than before. Maybe I am avoiding small talk. With me? His hand moved to the trackpad, but he did not click anything. No, 1 word. Calm. Too calm. I should have joked again. I was good at that. It was safer than asking why my pulse had suddenly picked up. But my brain gave me nothing. Miles leaned a little closer to read the slide, and the side of his knee touched mine under the table. It could have been an accident. It probably was. I told myself that immediately. Then he did not move it away. I stopped breathing for maybe half a second. He kept his eyes on the screen, but the tips of his ears went faintly pink. That made everything worse. Because if he had not noticed, fine. If he had noticed and moved, also fine. But staying there? Quietly? Like both of us were pretending it was not happening? That was not fine at all. There, he murmured, tapping the trackpad. Try replacing it with this. I looked at the updated chart. That is actually way better. You sound surprised. I am. I thought you were just here to judge my caffeine intake. I can multitask. Dangerous skill. So I have been told. His eyes flicked to mine again, and for one weird second, I had the strongest feeling he wanted to say something else. Something that had nothing to do with charts, coffee, or the disaster pretending to be my client deck. Then the office printer beeped sharply behind us, and we both looked away like we had been caught doing something. Miles rolled his chair back first. The air between us felt colder when his knee was no longer touching mine. I hated that I noticed. I should grab those pages, he said, already standing. Yeah, sure. My voice sounded normal enough. Mostly. He crossed to the printer, and I tried very hard not to watch him. I failed for about 3 seconds, then looked back at my laptop like a decent person. When he returned, he set a fresh stack of papers on the table, but he also placed something else beside my keyboard. A hot coffee from the break room machine. Black, with 2 creamers on the side. I stared at it. You made me coffee? You were out. I could have made it. You were busy losing a fight with slide 22. I picked up one of the creamers, trying not to smile. You are weirdly observant. Miles was quiet for a moment. Then he leaned one hand against the table, not close enough to touch me, but close enough that I felt pinned there anyway. His voice dropped just slightly. Only with things I want to understand. My fingers tightened around the creamer. I looked up. He was watching me, steady and unreadable, but not distant. Not even close to distant. The office went silent around us. My heart started pounding for a reason I could not explain away with caffeine, exhaustion, or bad fluorescent lighting. And do you? I managed. Understand. Miles held my gaze for 1 second too long. Then another. Not yet. He straightened, picked up his papers, and walked back to his desk before I could remember how to breathe. I sat there staring at the coffee, telling myself it was just a strange conversation on a long night. Just 2 coworkers stuck late. Just the quiet new guy being hard to read. But then I looked across the office, and Miles was already looking back. The server went down at 10:18, which felt a little too dramatic for a Thursday night that was already testing my emotional stability. 1 second, I was replacing the old numbers with the updated ones Miles had pulled for me. The next, a red error bar flashed across the screen, and the upload froze at 87%. I stared at it. No, the error bar blinked again. No. Across the room, Miles looked up from his monitor. What happened? The system just rejected the file. He was already standing before I finished the sentence. Rejected how? In a rude way. Ethan, it says the shared drive cannot sync changes. Miles came around my side of the table, and for some reason, that felt different than before. Maybe because I was already tired. Maybe because he still had that calm focus on his face, the kind that made everyone else in the office feel unnecessarily loud by comparison. Or maybe because 10 minutes ago, he had looked at me and said he only noticed things he wanted to understand. I had not recovered from that. Not even close. He leaned over my laptop, one hand braced on the edge of the table. His shoulder hovered near mine. Too near. I could see the little crease between his eyebrows as he read the error message. It is not just your file. He glanced toward his own screen. My report stopped syncing too. Great. So we are both doomed. Not doomed. Mildly cursed. That almost got a smile. Almost. He pulled his phone out and checked something. Network maintenance was scheduled for Saturday. It is Thursday. I noticed. There is that data genius again. He ignored that, but his mouth twitched. We can try the conference room Ethernet. It is usually more stable than the open floor Wi-Fi. I looked toward the glass-walled conference room near the corner. The lights were off inside, the long table reflecting the city glow from the windows. During the day, that room hosted quarterly planning meetings and Martin saying things like synergy with a straight face. At night, it looked way too private. You want to move in there? My voice came out more casual than I felt. Miles looked at me. Not quickly, not awkwardly. Just looked. Unless you would rather stay out here and keep glaring at the error message. I grabbed my laptop a little too fast. Conference room it is. We set up side by side at the far end of the table, where the Ethernet port actually worked after Miles got on one knee and reached under the table to plug it in. I looked away while he did it, because apparently I had become the type of person who got nervous watching a coworker fix a cable. Pathetic. Completely normal and pathetic. Try now. He slid back into the chair beside me, closer this time because the cord barely reached. Our elbows nearly touched. I uploaded the deck again. 20%. 42. 68. Then it froze. Again. I am going to walk into traffic. Do not. That creates more paperwork. I turned to him. Was that a joke? A practical concern. You are hilarious in the most unsettling way. This time, he actually smiled. And because the room was darker than the rest of the office, because the glass walls reflected the two of us sitting too close, because nobody else was around to interrupt, I noticed how soft that smile made him look. Not cold, not distant, just careful, like he had spent a long time learning not to take up too much space. What? The smile faded a little. My face got warm. Nothing. You look like you were going to say something. I was going to make fun of you, but I am trying to be professional. At 10:30 at night? Especially then. His eyes stayed on mine, and the joke just sort of died between us. Not badly, just quietly. I could feel my pulse in my wrist. Then his phone buzzed on the table, and mine buzzed right after. A message from Jenna popped up in the team chat. Are you two still alive over there? Martin says he needs the final deck tonight. Then another message. Also, if Ethan and the mysterious new guy are bonding after hours, I expect details tomorrow. I froze. Miles read it from his own phone at the same time. For 1 second, neither of us moved. Then I let out the fakest laugh of my life. Jenna is annoying. She is not wrong about Martin being annoying. That is not the part one meant. Miles looked down at the phone. His thumb hovered over the screen, but he did not type. The tips of his ears had gone pink again. I saw it. I really wished I had not. Because that was the moment I could not keep lying to myself. If this was nothing, why did my stomach drop when Jenna joked about it? If Miles was just being nice, why did he suddenly look like he had been caught wanting something? I cleared my throat and typed back. Deck is almost done. No details. Jenna replied immediately. That sounds like details. Miles gave a quiet breath that might have been a laugh, but he still would not quite look at me. The upload finally jumped to 94%. 97. Then another error. I closed my eyes. I hate everything. Not everything. The words came out low. Too low. I opened my eyes. Miles was looking at the screen, but his shoulders had gone tense, like he regretted saying it the second it left his mouth. My heart started pounding. What does that mean? He swallowed. For a second, I thought he might actually answer. Then he reached for my laptop, his fingers brushing mine on the trackpad. Neither of us moved. Not this time. His hand stayed there, warm against mine, both of us touching the same stupid computer like it mattered. The room went very quiet. Finally, Miles pulled back first. Slow. Careful. It means we should save a local copy before the system crashes again. Right. Of course. Work. Always work. I nodded like that made sense. Like my hand was not still tingling. Like I had not just watched him hide behind a sentence. We worked in silence after that, but it was not the same silence as before. It had weight now. A shape. Something sitting between us in that glass room while the rest of the office stayed empty. And when the file finally uploaded at 11:03, Miles leaned back, exhaled, and looked over at me. You okay? I almost said yes. I almost said I was just tired. But he was watching me too carefully for another lie to fit. So I looked down at our laptops, at the 2 empty coffee cups, at the reflection of us sitting close in the dark glass, and I said, I do not think I know anymore. Miles did not smile. He did not tease me. He just nodded once, like somehow, quietly, he understood exactly what I meant. Do you want me to leave? Miles asked it so quietly that, for a second, I thought I had imagined it. The file had finally uploaded. The deck was done. The emergency was over. There was no real reason for us to stay in that conference room anymore. But neither of us had moved. My laptop sat open between us, still glowing with the final confirmation screen, and somehow that felt safer to look at than him. What? I managed. Miles leaned back in his chair, but his eyes stayed on me. You got quiet. It is almost midnight. That is not what I meant. My throat went dry. Outside the glass walls, the office was empty except for a few desk lamps and the soft green exit sign near the elevators. Everything felt too exposed and too hidden at the same time. Like anyone could walk by and see us, but nobody would understand what they were looking at. I am fine, I said. Too fast. Miles nodded once, not believing me. That was one of the most irritating things about him. He never pushed loudly. He just noticed too much and left the truth sitting there until I tripped over it myself. I closed my laptop. You do that a lot. His eyebrows lifted slightly. Do what? Ask questions like you already know the answer. He looked down at his hands. There was a small ink mark near his thumb, probably from one of the reports he had printed earlier. Maybe I am checking if I am wrong. About me? His eyes came back to mine. The room seemed to shrink. Sometimes, my heart gave one hard, stupid beat. I should have made a joke. I should have stood up, grabbed my bag, thanked him for helping, and gone home like a normal adult with a normal life and normal boundaries. Instead, I stayed there. "And are you?" I asked. Miles did not answer right away. He turned his coffee cup slowly in his hands, even though it was empty. "I do not know." A pause. "You are harder to read than you think." That almost made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was ridiculous. I had spent the entire night feeling like a badly written email with all my feelings accidentally copied to everyone. "I am not hard to read. You are with me." The words landed soft, but they knocked the air out of me anyway. With me. Not at work. Not around people. With me. I looked away first. Cowardly, maybe, but necessary. My face felt hot, and I hated that I could not blame it on the coffee this time. Miles shifted beside me. The movement was small, just his chair angling closer, but I felt it everywhere. Ethan. My name sounded different in that quiet room. Less casual. Less safe. I turned back before I could stop myself. He was closer than before. Not touching me. Not doing anything he could not explain away if someone walked in. But close enough that I noticed the rise and fall of his breathing. Close enough that I could see he looked nervous too. That surprised me most. Miles, who stayed calm through server crashes and printer jams and Jenna's gossip bombs, looked like he was standing at the edge of something with no idea how far down it went. "I should probably stop asking things," he murmured. "Why?" "Because you keep looking at me like that." My stomach dropped. "Like what?" His eyes flicked over my face, slow and careful, like he was trying not to make a mistake. "Like you want me to say something dangerous." I forgot how to respond. Completely. There were 10,000 safer answers. I found none of them. The silence got so loud I could hear the faint buzz of the lights above us. Then Miles reached across the table, not for my hand exactly, but for the pen beside it. His fingers brushed mine again. This time he stopped. I stopped. The pen stayed where it was. His fingertips rested against the side of my hand, barely there, warm enough to ruin me. "Ethan." His voice was almost a warning now, or a question. I did not pull away. I did not even pretend to. For 1 second, maybe 2, we just sat there in the conference room with our hands touching beside a finished client deck, both of us acting like the smallest contact in the world was not completely rearranging the night. Miles looked at our hands, then at me. "Tell me if I am wrong." My breath caught. "About what?" He leaned in just a little. Not enough for anything to happen. Enough for the possibility to enter the room and take up all the space. "About this." That was the closest either of us had come to saying it. This. Whatever had been hiding under coffee, broken servers, printer jokes, and late-night eye contact. My mouth opened, but before I could say a single word, a keycard beeped outside the conference room. Both of us jerked back like someone had dropped a glass. The door at the far end of the office opened, and the night security guard stepped in, flashlights swinging lazily toward the desks. "Anybody still here?" My heart slammed into my ribs. Miles stood up, so quickly his chair rolled back. "Yeah," he called, voice rougher than usual. "Just wrapping up." I grabbed my laptop and nearly fumbled the charger. My hand still felt warm where his fingers had been. The guard waved through the glass. "Building closes in 15. "We are leaving," I said too loudly. Miles glanced at me, and there it was again. That almost smile. Not amused. Not exactly. More like he knew we had both just been saved and interrupted at the same time. We packed up without looking at each other much. At the elevator, the silence followed us in. I watched the doors slide shut, trapping us in the small, mirrored space together. Miles stood beside me, shoulder almost brushing mine. Neither of us said anything until the numbers started counting down. Then he looked at our reflections instead of directly at me. "For the record," he said quietly, "I was not wrong." My chest tightened so hard I had to look down. The elevator dinged before I could answer. And maybe that was good, because if those doors had stayed closed for even 10 more seconds, I think I would have stopped pretending I did not know exactly what he meant. By Monday morning, I had convinced myself the elevator thing was not as serious as it felt. That was my plan anyway. Get in early. Act normal. Drink bad coffee. Pretend Miles had not looked at our reflection and said, I was not wrong. Like it was a confession disguised as a weather report. Very mature. Very healthy. I lasted 12 minutes. The second I walked into the office, Jenna looked up from her desk with the expression of someone who had already chosen violence. Well, I stopped walking. Absolutely not. I did not even say anything. Your face did. She rolled her chair closer to the aisle, holding her coffee with both hands like this was a morning talk show. So, you and Miles were here until almost midnight. Martin needed the deck. Martin always needs something. That does not usually make you blush. My stomach dropped. I am not blushing. Jenna looked past me. Miles, is Ethan blushing? I turned so fast I almost spilled my coffee. Miles had just stepped out of the elevator, laptop bag over one shoulder, hair a little damp like he had rushed through a shower. He froze when he saw both of us looking at him. For 1 second, his eyes met mine. Just one. But it was enough to bring back the conference room. The brush of his fingers, the way he had almost leaned in before the security guard ruined everything. Then his expression closed. Not cold. Careful. Morning, he said, voice calm. Too calm. Jenna grinned. That is not an answer. Miles walked toward his desk without slowing down. Then I guess you will have to survive the mystery. Jenna made a delighted noise. Oh, I like him. I should have laughed. Instead, I felt something twist in my chest because Miles did not look back. Not once. The rest of the morning was weird in a way I could not explain to anyone without sounding insane. Miles was polite, normal, professional, which should have made me feel better. It did not. In the kitchen, he reached around me for a mug and left a full foot of space between us, even though on Thursday night, he had sat close enough for our knees to touch. In the meeting, he addressed every comment to the room, not directly to me. When Martin praised the deck, Miles simply nodded and said, Ethan did most of the narrative work. Like we were just coworkers, which we were, technically. Unfortunately, after the meeting, Jenna caught me near the copy machine. Okay, what happened? Nothing happened. That is the least believable thing you have ever said, and I once heard you tell Martin his rebrand idea had potential. I pulled the warm copies from the tray and tapped them into a stack. We worked late. The server crashed. Security kicked us out. End of story. Jenna's face softened in a way that made me nervous. Ethan. What? I am teasing because that is my brand, but seriously. Be careful. That hit harder than I expected. With what? She glanced across the office. Miles was at his desk, talking to someone from finance. He looked composed, hands folded, posture easy. Completely unreadable. Office stuff gets messy, Jenna murmured. People talk. Martin notices everything when it affects productivity and nothing when it affects actual humans. I laughed, but it came out weak. There is nothing to notice. Jenna did not argue. Somehow that was worse. Okay. She squeezed my arm once. Just do not let a quiet guy make you weird if he is not willing to be brave too. I wanted to defend Miles, which was ridiculous because Jenna had not even insulted him. But the word stuck in my throat. Because maybe that was the part one had been avoiding. Miles had been brave in a dark conference room with nobody around. In the daylight, under fluorescent lights and office gossip, he had stepped back so cleanly I almost wondered if I had imagined the whole thing. Around lunch, I found a sticky note on my keyboard. No one was near my desk when I got there, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. Small, neat, controlled. Deck looked good. You okay? That was all. Not romantic. Not risky. Barely anything. Still, my chest tightened. I looked across the office before I could stop myself. Miles was already watching me. This time, he did not look away. I picked up a pen and wrote beneath his message. Are you? It was stupid. Passing notes like high schoolers in a glass box full of adults pretending spreadsheets mattered. But I folded it once and waited until I walked past his desk to drop it beside his keyboard. His hand moved over it quickly, hiding it from view. For the next hour, nothing happened. I tried to work. Failed. Rewrote the same email 4 times. Accidentally attached the wrong file to a client reply and had to apologize like my brain had not been replaced by static. Then, at 2:13, a message popped up on Slack. Miles Carter, I do not know how to be normal around you when people are watching. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. My heart started pounding so hard I had to sit back. Across the room, Miles was not looking at me now. His jaw was tense, eyes fixed on his monitor like he regretted sending it and could not take it back. I typed 3 different answers and deleted all of them. Finally, I wrote, me neither. His reply came a few seconds later. That might be a problem. I looked up. This time he did too. The office moved around us like nothing had changed. Phones rang. Jenna laughed near the kitchen. Martin complained about a calendar invite. But between Miles and me, something had shifted again. Not forward exactly. Not back either. Just more honest. More dangerous. And for the first time, I understood that the real problem was not what happened when we were alone. It was how impossible it felt to pretend nothing had happened when we were not. By 5:30, I had read Miles's message so many times the words stopped looking like words. That might be a problem. He had not sent anything after that. Neither had I. We just kept working in the same office like normal adults, except every time his chair shifted or his phone buzzed, my entire body acted like it had been personally invited into a crisis. I tried to be reasonable. People got caught up in weird moments all the time. Late nights made everything feel more important. Empty conference rooms did strange things to judgment. Maybe by tomorrow, we would both quietly agree to forget it. Then Miles appeared beside my desk at 5:43, holding his laptop against his chest. You have a second? My mouth went dry. For work. His eyes stayed on mine. Not really. That should have scared me more than it did. Instead, my chest loosened in this stupid, hopeful way. I followed him to the small copy room near the back, the one nobody used unless the main printer jammed or they needed to hide from Martin. Miles closed the door, then immediately looked like he regretted how serious that made it. Sorry. This is dramatic. A little. I can open it. No, the word came out too fast. His hand paused on the doorknob. For a second, neither of us moved. Then he let go. The copy room was barely big enough for 2 people and a machine that sounded like it was dying every time someone printed more than 5 pages. There were boxes of paper stacked against the wall, a crooked poster about toner safety, and absolutely nowhere to stand that did not feel too close. Miles kept his back near the door. I leaned against the counter. Safe distance. Sort of. I did not mean to make today weird, he started. I let out a breath that was almost a laugh. That is usually what people say after making things weird. His mouth twitched, but it did not last. I pulled back this morning. I noticed. I know. He looked down, thumb rubbing the edge of his laptop. I saw your face when I did it. That hit me harder than I expected. I crossed my arms, mostly to have something to do with my hands. It is fine. It is not. Miles looked up then, and the careful calm was gone. Not completely, but enough that I could see the nerves underneath. I keep telling myself we are at work, and people talk, and you probably do not want to be part of whatever mess comes with being noticed. My chest tightened. You decided that for me? No, he swallowed. Maybe. I do not know. I am bad at this. At what? He gave me a look, tired and almost helpless. At wanting something and not overthinking it to death. The room went quiet except for the faint buzz of the copy machine. I should have felt relieved. Maybe I did. But mostly, I felt exposed, like he had stepped into the exact sentence I had been trying not to say all day. I thought you regretted it, I admitted. His eyebrows pulled together. Thursday. The conference room. The elevator. The note. Pick one. Miles exhaled slow. I did not regret it. My fingers tightened around my own sleeve. You acted like you did. Because I panicked. He looked away for a second, jaw tense. Jenna joked, and suddenly it was not just us anymore. It was the office. Martin. Everyone watching. And I did not want to make you uncomfortable. You did anyway. The words came out softer than I meant them to. Miles nodded once, like he deserved that. I know. I hated how quickly that made my anger disappear. He was not smooth about this. He was not playing some game. He looked genuinely lost, and somehow that made him more dangerous. So what are we doing? I asked. He let out a quiet breath through his nose. Almost a laugh, but not quite. I was hoping you knew. Terrible plan. Yeah. Another silence. This one felt different. Less sharp. More honest. Miles shifted his laptop to one hand and reached into his pocket with the other. For half a second, I thought he was going to show me something work-related because my brain was apparently committed to denial until the end. Instead, he pulled out the sticky note I had written on. Are you? He had folded it carefully, once down the middle, like he had been carrying it around all afternoon. My heart did something awful. You kept that. His eyes flicked to mine. I did not want to throw it away. Such a small answer. Such a quiet answer. But it landed harder than any confession could have. I looked at the note, then at him. Miles. I do not want to go back to normal, he said. The words came out low, rough around the edges. I tried this morning, and it felt worse. I forgot how to breathe. He took one step closer, then stopped, leaving space between us like he was giving me every chance to walk away. I do not know what this is yet. I do not know how to do it in an office full of people who think teasing is a team-building exercise. But Thursday night felt real to me. My chest tightened so hard it almost hurt. There it was. Not a joke. Not a late-night accident. Not me imagining too much from coffee, notes, and fingers brushing in a dark conference room. Miles was scared too. Miles was in it too. It felt real to me too, I said. His shoulders dropped slightly, like he had been holding his breath since Monday morning. For 1 second, the space between us felt impossible. His hand moved first, slow enough that I could stop it. I did not. He touched my wrist, just 2 fingers against my pulse, gentle and careful. Nothing more than that. Still, my whole body went quiet. "Is this okay?" he murmured. I looked down at his hand, then back up at him. Yeah. His thumb shifted once, barely, like he needed to make sure I was actually there. Outside the door, someone laughed down the hallway, and both of us froze. Miles pulled back, but not like before. Not scared, just aware. His eyes stayed on mine. "We should probably leave before Jenna starts a search party." I laughed under my breath, shaky and real. "She already has theories." "I am sure she does." He opened the door first, then paused. In the hallway light, he looked almost like the quiet new guy again. Almost. But before we stepped out, he leaned just close enough for only me to hear. "For the record, I do not hate the theories." Then he walked away toward his desk, calm as ever, while I stood there in the copy room doorway with my pulse still racing and the terrifying realization that this was not one-sided anymore. The problem with hearing Miles say he did not want to go back to normal was that, after that, normal became impossible. I tried anyway. We both did. Tuesday morning, he walked past my desk with a coffee in his hand and placed it beside my keyboard without stopping. No note. No look. Just coffee exactly how I liked it. 2 creamers. No sugar. I stared at it like it had personally threatened me. Jenna noticed immediately. Of course she did. "Interesting beverage delivery system," she murmured as she passed. "Do not start." "I have started nothing." She looked at the cup, then at Miles across the office. "But I support local romance." I nearly choked. "Jenna." "Fine. Local whatever this is." That was the word that stuck. Whatever this is. Because I did not know what it was either. Miles and I were not dating. We had not kissed. We had not even held hands for longer than a few seconds in a copy room next to toner boxes. But he had kept my note in his pocket. He had touched my wrist like it mattered. And now he was pretending to read a spreadsheet while definitely watching to see if I drank the coffee. So I did. His eyes dropped to the cup, then back to his monitor. The smallest smile crossed his face, and it made my whole morning stupid. Things stayed like that for most of the week. Tiny moments. Nothing anyone could prove. A Slack message that said, "Martin used the word quick again. Run." A sticky note on my monitor that just said, "Eat lunch." A shared look across a meeting when Jenna called a campaign, emotionally confusing. Every little thing felt harmless until I realized I was building my day around them. Waiting for them. Wanting them. That scared me more than the almost kiss. By Friday, I was a mess in a button-down pretending to answer emails. Then Martin announced a last-minute happy hour to celebrate surviving the pitch. Mandatory, apparently, which meant not mandatory in the way work things never are. I thought Miles would skip it. He did not. He showed up in a dark green sweater, sleeves pushed up, looking unfairly relaxed for someone who had spent the week ruining my ability to behave. The bar was crowded, loud, all brick walls and neon beer signs, and finance guys talking like volume was a personality trait. I stayed near Jenna because that felt safe. Miles stood by the high-top table with Daniel from finance, nodding while Daniel told some story with his whole body. Then Daniel laughed and touched Miles's shoulder. Just a quick thing. Friendly. Normal. Miles did not move away. My chest tightened before I could stop it, which was insane. I had no right to react. Miles was allowed to talk to people. People were allowed to touch his shoulder in a bar. That was how society worked. Still, I looked away and took a drink of my soda like I had personally been betrayed by casual social behavior. Jenna followed my gaze. "Oh, do not." I was not going to. Your "oh" was loud. She took a slow sip of her margarita. "You know, jealousy is very off-brand for a guy who claims nothing is happening." Nothing is happening. Sure. I hated how gently she said it. Across the bar, Miles glanced over. I immediately turned toward Jenna, and laughed at something she had not said. Mature, subtle, completely humiliating. When I looked back, Miles's expression had changed. Not much, just enough. His shoulders went still. His eyes moved from me to Jenna, then away. The rest of the night slipped sideways after that. He stopped trying to catch my eye. I pretended not to notice. He talked to Daniel. I talked to Jenna. Two adults performing normal at an Olympic level. Around 9, I stepped outside to breathe. The cold hit my face, and I leaned against the brick wall near the alley, annoyed with myself. I was not his boyfriend. He was not mine. We were not anything. The door opened behind me. I knew it was Miles before I turned. You left. His voice was quiet, almost swallowed by traffic. I kept my eyes on the sidewalk. Needed air. He stepped beside me, leaving space. Always careful. Always making me decide if I wanted to close it. Tonight, I did not. Or I was scared I did. Did I do something? That made me look at him. What? You have been acting different since we got here. I laughed once, sharp and fake. That is funny coming from you. His face tightened. What does that mean? It means you are great at being honest when nobody is around. The words came out before I could soften them. Miles went still. Immediately, I regretted it. Ethan, forget it. No. He shifted closer, then stopped himself. Do not do that. Do what? Say the thing, and then try to take it back. My throat tightened. I hated this. I hated how much I cared. I saw you with Daniel. The second it left my mouth, I wanted to walk into traffic for real this time. Miles blinked. Then understanding crossed his face, followed by something almost sad. Daniel is married. I know that now. You could have asked. Ask what? Hey, are we something enough for me to feel weird about another guy touching your shoulder? The silence after that was brutal. Cars passed. Someone laughed inside the bar. Miles looked down at his hands, and for the first time all week, he looked younger than 29. Less composed. That is what scares me, he admitted. My anger faded too fast. What? That I want the answer to be yes, and I do not know what that means for Monday morning. I stopped breathing for a second. Miles looked up, eyes steady but tired. I like what is happening with you. I do. But I also like my job. I like not being talked about. I like having control over one part of my life. His voice dropped. And when Jenna jokes, or Daniel touches my shoulder, or Martin watches who stays late, I remember this is not just two people in an empty conference room. I swallowed. So what are you saying? He did not answer right away. That was the worst part. The pause. The carefulness. The fear dressed up as logic. Maybe we should slow down. There it was. The step back. Clean. Reasonable. Painful anyway. I nodded because I refused to look hurt in an alley outside a work happy hour. Yeah, sure. Slow down. Miles's expression flickered. Ethan. No, it makes sense. I pushed off the wall. Office stuff gets messy. He looked like he wanted to reach for me and did not. That hurt more than if he had. I walked back inside before he could say anything else. And when Monday came, the coffee did not appear on my desk. By Tuesday afternoon, the silence between us had become its own coworker. It sat in meetings. It hovered near the coffee machine. It followed me every time I walked past Miles's desk and acted like I did not notice the empty space beside my keyboard where a cup used to show up. No coffee. No sticky notes. No dumb Slack messages about Martin. Just polite nods and work questions sent in complete sentences with punctuation. Honestly, punctuation felt personal. I told myself this was what slowing down looked like. Adults did this. Adults made smart choices, kept boundaries, protected their jobs, and did not get emotionally wrecked because one quiet guy stopped buying them coffee. Then at 6:12, my screen blinked. Miles Carter, conference room? I stared at it until Jenna, from 2 desks over, muttered, "If you do not go, I am going to start throwing office supplies." I looked at her. You are very invested. I am very tired of watching 2 men communicate through sad eye contact and Microsoft Teams. I should have denied it. I did not have the energy. The conference room was empty when I got there. Same one as before. Same long table. Same glass walls. Same stupid Ethernet port under the table that had started all of this. Miles stood by the window, one hand in his pocket, the other rubbing the back of his neck. He turned when I walked in, and for a second, all my practice calm fell apart. He looked tired. Not work tired. The other kind. You wanted to talk? I kept my hand on the door handle. Safe. Ready to leave. Miles noticed. Of course he did. You can keep it open. That made my chest hurt a little. I let go of the handle, but did not close the door all the way. It stayed cracked behind me, a thin line of office noise cutting through the room. Phones. Keyboards. Jenna pretending not to watch from her desk. I messed up, Miles said. No warm-up. No spreadsheet excuse. Just that. I crossed my arms. Which part? His mouth tightened, not quite a smile. Fair. He looked down at the table. Friday. The alley. Saying we should slow down, and then acting like you disappeared because that was easier than facing you. I swallowed. You did not act like I disappeared. I did. You sent work emails. Exactly. That almost got me. Almost. I looked away because if I looked at him too long, I was going to stop being mad, and I was not ready to give that up yet. You were the one who said you did not want to go back to normal. I know. Then you made everything aggressively normal. Miles nodded once. I know. The quiet stretched. He did not rush to fill it, which was such a Miles thing to do that it annoyed me all over again. Do you know how confusing that is? My voice came out lower than I expected. Having you say Thursday felt real, then Monday acting like I imagined it. His eyes lifted to mine. You did not imagine it. That does not help if you only admit it when the door is closed. He flinched. Small, but I saw it. Part of me felt bad. The rest of me felt relieved that I had finally said it out loud. Miles stepped closer, then stopped himself near the end of the table, still giving me space. Always space. I was scared. I know. Not of you. I know that too. My throat tightened. That is the problem. I understand why you pulled back, but it still hurt. His face changed then. The careful expression cracked just enough for me to see the guilt underneath. I am sorry. Simple. Quiet. No performance. I hated how much I believed him. I leaned against the table because my legs suddenly felt less reliable than they should have. I do not need some big label by Friday. I am not asking you to walk into the break room and make an announcement. He let out a breath that was almost a laugh, but it broke halfway. Good. Because Martin would make it a team discussion. He would call it alignment. That got the smallest smile from Miles. Then it faded. What are you asking for? I looked at him. Really looked. Do not make me feel stupid for believing you. The room went completely still. Miles's hand curled against the edge of the chair beside him. For a second, he looked like he had taken a hit and decided not to step back from it. You are not stupid. I felt stupid Monday morning. I know. When the coffee was not there. His eyes softened. I bought it. That stopped me. What? Miles looked embarrassed for the first time since I had known him. Actually embarrassed. I bought your coffee. I got to the office, stood outside the elevator with it, and then convinced myself leaving it on your desk would make things harder. My chest tightened. So what did you do with it? He looked away. Drank it. A laugh slipped out before I could stop it. You hate iced coffee. It was terrible. Good. He laughed then, quiet and real, and the sound loosened something in me I had been holding all weekend. But the moment did not erase everything. It just made room for the truth to sit down between us without pretending to be work. Miles took one more step closer. Not enough to crowd me. Enough to choose it. I do not want to disappear again, he murmured. I do not know how fast I can be brave, but I want to try. My fingers rested on the table beside me. His hand was a few inches away. Close enough to notice. Close enough to remember the copy room, the conference room, the elevator. Trying looks like what? I asked. Miles looked at my hand, then back at me. Like not hiding from you in plain sight. His fingers moved first. Slow. Careful. He did not grab my hand. He just rested his fingertips beside mine, asking without words. I could have moved away. I did not. I turned my hand slightly until our fingers touched. Barely. Enough. Miles inhaled like that small contact had answered something bigger than the question. Outside the room, someone walked past the glass. We both froze, but this time, neither of us pulled away immediately. The person kept going. Miles's thumb brushed once against the side of my finger. My heart pounded so hard it felt ridiculous. Door is still open, I whispered. His eyes stayed on mine. I know. Another pause. That okay? I looked at the cracked door. The office beyond it. The risk. The fear. Then back at him. Yeah. His shoulders dropped, almost like relief. We did not kiss. We did not make some dramatic promise. We just stood there in a conference room after work, fingers touching on the edge of a table, both of us finally too tired to pretend we were only talking about boundaries. Then Jenna's voice floated from outside, way too casual. I am going to the kitchen, and I am definitely not looking in there. Miles closed his eyes. I almost laughed into my own hand. He opened them again, and there was warmth there now. Nervous, but real. "Coffee tomorrow?" he asked. I squeezed his fingers once before letting go. "Only if you do not drink mine first." His smile stayed this time. "Deal." And when I walked back to my desk, the office still looked the same. Same lights, same phones, same ridiculous deadlines. But something had changed anyway. Not loudly, not safely, just enough that, for the first time since Friday, normal did not feel like a lie. The coffee was on my desk the next morning before I even took off my jacket. I stopped in the aisle and stared at it for a second like it might disappear if I moved too fast. Same clear plastic cup, same 2 creamers beside it. No note this time, just coffee. Across the office, Miles was at his desk, pretending to review something on his monitor with the worst fake concentration I had ever seen. I picked up the cup. His eyes flicked over. I took a sip. He looked back at his screen, but the corner of his mouth lifted. It was small, almost nothing. It still felt like a promise. Jenna appeared beside me with her mug and a look that said she had already witnessed the whole thing. "Interesting," she murmured. "It is coffee." "Sure. People buy coffee for coworkers." "Absolutely." She took one slow sip. "Especially coworkers they almost hold hands with in conference rooms." I nearly coughed. "I am begging you to get a hobby." "This is my hobby." Then, softer, she nudged my shoulder. "You look happier." That shut me up. Because I was. Not in some huge, movie-ending way. Nothing about my life had magically become simple overnight. Martin was still sending emails with the subject line, "Quick Thought." The printer still jammed if anyone breathed near it. Miles and I still worked in an office where people noticed things and turned them into jokes before lunch. But I was happier. And I had not realized how much pretending had been taken out of me until I did not have to do it quite so hard anymore. Miles and I did not make a big announcement. We did not suddenly become the kind of people who flirted across meetings or held hands by the elevator like we were proving a point. That would not have been us. Not yet. Maybe not ever. What changed was smaller. Better, somehow. He stopped disappearing when people were around. I stopped acting like his attention confused me. At lunch, when everyone crowded into the break room, Miles sat beside me instead of across the table. Not dramatic. Just pulled out the chair and sat down like it was the obvious place to be. Jenna saw it and raised her eyebrows at me over her salad. I ignored her. Mostly. Daniel from finance tried to steal one of my fries, and Miles slid the basket closer to me without even looking up from his sandwich. "Protective," Jenna muttered. Miles finally looked at her. "Of fries." "Of course." His knee touched mine under the table. This time, neither of us moved away. My chest tightened, but not from panic. From something warmer. Something steadier. Later that evening, almost everyone left by 6. I stayed behind to finish a report I definitely could have finished the next morning. Old habits. Or maybe I was just not ready to go home yet. Around 6:30, Miles appeared near my desk with his laptop bag over one shoulder. "Still here?" I looked up at him. Poor career choices. His smile was quiet. Familiar. So often. I laughed because he remembered. Because somehow that first night had become ours without either of us noticing. He glanced at the empty office, then back at me. "Do you want company?" Such a simple question. Nothing dangerous on the surface. But I heard everything underneath it. "Do you want me to stay? Do you want this to keep being real? Do you want us to stop turning away from the thing we already know is there?" I closed my laptop. "Actually," I said, reaching for my jacket, "I was thinking we could leave." Miles paused. "Together?" My stomach flipped at how careful he sounded. Like he still did not want to assume. Like he was still giving me room to say no. I stood and grabbed the coffee cup from my desk, the ice mostly melted now. "Yeah, together." He looked at me for a second too long, then nodded once, but I saw the relief in his face. We walked to the elevator side by side. Not touching. Not yet. The doors opened, and for half a second, I remembered that night. The mirrored walls. His voice saying he had not been wrong. Me standing there too scared to answer. This time, when we stepped inside, Miles reached for the button, and his hand brushed mine. Same tiny contact as before. Same spark through my wrist. But instead of pulling away, he let his fingers stay. Just there. Waiting. I looked at our hands in the reflection. Then at him. Then I slid my fingers between his. Not tightly. Not like a declaration. Just enough to say I was done pretending I did not want to. Miles stared at our hands. Then let out a breath that almost sounded like a laugh. Door is going to open in 10 seconds, he murmured. Probably. People might see. My heart was pounding, but I did not let go. Yeah. He turned his head toward me. That okay? I smiled, small and nervous and real. Ask me again tomorrow. The elevator dinged. The doors opened into the lobby, bright and ordinary and full of people leaving work like it was any other day. Miles's hand stayed in mine. Mine stayed in his. No one gasped. No one stopped. The world did not end. Jenna, walking out ahead of us, glanced back once, saw our hands, and smiled like she had just won a bet with herself. She did not say anything. For once. Outside, the air was cold enough to make me pull my jacket tighter. Miles looked down at our hands again, then gently squeezed once. Coffee tomorrow? I shook my head. Dinner first. His eyes lifted to mine, and this time the smile did not hide. Yeah. Yeah. We kept walking down the sidewalk, past the glass doors, past the office where we had spent weeks pretending late nights and coffee and careful looks did not mean anything. And I think that was the part one remembered most later. Not the almost kiss. Not the conference room. Not even the first time he touched my wrist. It was leaving together. Hands still joined. Both of us scared. Both of us unsure, but neither of us letting go. Because sometimes love does not arrive like a confession. Sometimes it starts as a coffee left on your desk, a quiet guy noticing too much, and one ordinary night when you finally stop calling it nothing.